Knitting a worsted weight 5-foot by 7.5-foot blanket for somebody you love is not an act of love. That's an act of mental illness. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm recording this part of the video in April. So my husband and I have been married for 6 years this November. And one of the traditional, or maybe it's the modern, I don't remember which, anniversary gifts is wool. So I've decided to knit my husband an anniversary blanket. And the way that I'm doing that is that I'm incorporating yarn purchased and dyed in the cities that we both grew up in, as well as the cities where we've lived together. Adam's favorite color is blue, and so I thought it would be cool to get different shades of blue, thinking about sort of the skies or the shades of blue that I associate with each of the places that we've lived. This is a pretty ambitious project, so that's why I'm recording this in April and our anniversary is in November. I wanted to sort of go through the yarn that I have so far, talk about it a little bit. Later today, actually, I have an online shopping appointment with Farmer's Daughters Fibers in Great Falls, Montana, my hometown, because the color that I picked up from them is a little too purple, I think, for the color palette that I have going on, and I might need to replace another one of the colors as well. But before we get into that, let me show you the yarn. My husband is from just outside Detroit. There aren't a lot of indie dyers there, but I am familiar with Plucky Knitter, just outside of Detroit in Hastings, which is not where my husband's from, but close. And this is their Luxe Merino Worsted non-superwash in Chantilly, and it's a beautiful cobalt blue. I just really, really do love this color. Place that I'm from, Great Falls, Montana, I got the Pishkin yarn from Farmer's Daughters Fibers. And this is in Bittersweet Nightshade. And as you can see, it's much more of a purple than what I thought I was getting. I thought I was getting more of a dark blue. The first place that Adam and I lived together was in Seattle, Washington. So I got a beautiful skein from Seattle Sky Dye Works in Ville, which is their superwash merino. And the colorway is Fairy, which is like a ferry boat, as they would say in Grey's Anatomy, not like a fairy with wings. And this really, I love this color because it reminds me so much of Seattle. Much like here in London, it's very much a place of gray sky, except for just a couple days out of the year, which is why I love this shock of bright blue through this otherwise very desaturated sort of gray blue. To me, this is probably the yarn that is most like the city that I've picked up so far. I absolutely love this. When we left Seattle, we moved to Copenhagen for a year. So from Thelma Steinman in Copenhagen, I got this non-superwash organic merino Aran in the colorway Ice Ice Baby. And this is actually a bit more green than I was expecting, but it also has some of those nice icy grays. I wasn't able to find... Copenhagen is a really interesting city because during the summer, it's the same sort of bright cobalt blue skies, but in the winter, it's very gray in the couple hours of sunshine you do get. So this reminded me of everything being iced over in the winter in Copenhagen and trying to get the most out of those couple hours of sunlight. So yeah, those are the colors, and I think most of them work well together. But these two kind of give me pause, particularly when you add in the Ice Ice Baby, or maybe the Ice Baby, which is it? Just Ice Baby. Like, I don't think the green base and then the purple and the true blue, this doesn't all really work well together. But I do very much feel like the shock of blue in the fairy sort of ties together the Ice Ice Baby. Why do I? Because vanilla ice, whatever. Anyway, I feel like these three work pretty well together. But this one is the odd one out. Yeah, I just don't love those four colors together. Oh, if you're wondering where the London yarn is, I actually have an order in for quite a lot of charcoal gray. I don't really think of London as a blue city, and I thought I'm looking at a couple different patterns that I want to riff off of. The one that I think I'm leaning most heavily towards right now is actually a scarf pattern from Stephen West called Wedgwood. That's intarsia, basically garter stitch framing for long, narrow stripes of stockinette. And I think it's really beautiful. It's a really great way to show off hand-dyed yarn. And I'm thinking that I want to do that perhaps, but with 8 stripes. And make the stripes a little bit thicker, we'll see. Or I might go with like a grid of squares, but I don't think that really I have enough colors going on to make sense of squares. But anyway, whatever I do, there's going to be a main color, and then these are going to be sort of the colors around it. I think charcoal gray, because that's our home, like London's our home. It's our base now, and I think using the London yarn as being our base is kind of a cool way of doing it. So anyway, I just wanted to show you some of the yarn that I'm going to use, tell you some of the things I'm thinking about. And then this is going to be a very long video to make because it is absolutely going to take you beginning to end in the process of making a very large blanket for my anniversary with my husband. It is currently April 29th and our anniversary is November 20th. So I've got about 7 months to make the blanket. And I have other projects that I want to make as well. And I have Christmas knitting that I've committed to do. So this is going to be a very exciting time for me. Stay tuned.
Put your hand in mine. Together we can fly over mountains, rivers, ocean blues, as long as I'm with you. Maybe we could go to a place that no one knows. Fall asleep on the old oak tree, memories of you and me.
Is this going to be a huge mistake? Have I left myself enough time? Do I know what I want the blanket to look like? Are these yarns going to work together? The answers to all of these questions and more if you stay tuned, because I'm knitting this blanket with love by hand for my amazing, incredible husband, who is my favorite person in the world. Don't tell my kids. Don't tell my kids. I mean, I think they're probably okay with it. I mean, they're very, very, they're tied for a very close second. I love them a lot. Please don't call Child Protective Services. My children are very well taken care of and very beloved. Anyway, Copenhagen. Copenhagen is a really interesting place. Copenhagen does have some incredibly like bright cobalt blue days, but when I think of Copenhagen, I think of winter. I think of sort of the iciness, the grayness, the sort of little bits of light. It's a much more delicate blue that I think of. And we got from the painter's yarn, which I believe is not from Copenhagen. I believe it's Aarhus. We got this nice blue. I had a different blue that looked much more blue on her website. You know, hand-dyed yarn does tend to drift, and you never know whether the color temperature that photo was taken is going to be like accurate to your eye, and it just turned out to be a little too green with the other yarns that we had. So for my hometown of Great Falls, Montana, I went with something a little bit different. So this is the Pishkin non-superwash in a sweet nightshade, I believe is the color. So that was the original color I chose. But then I got freaked out by the sort of greenish color of the Copenhagen yarn, which didn't look good with the purple. Both of them just seemed too off of blue. So then I bought this great slate cadet blue called Union Street State of Mind, which is an absolutely great blue that when I switched out the other yarns, no longer worked. So that's going to become a sweater or something. That's also a really great shade of blue that Adam will love. And at some point I will make him a sweater in yarn from my hometown, and that will be very sweet. But I've got to get through this blanket first. So in thinking about wanting a color to contrast and frame the blues, the only thing that made sense to me for London was a nice dark charcoal gray. And this is from Black Elephant, hand-dyed here in the UK. And it's just a nice neutral charcoal. I originally got a black from here in London, but the black just was not working with the colors. It felt too harsh with all of the blues, and so I ended up buying some charcoal instead. Does that mean that between the Union Street State of Mind from Great Falls, Montana, the blue-green Ice Baby yarn from Copenhagen, and the black yarn from London, that I have like accidentally, I don't know, 12 skeins of colors that I did not need and will not be using? Yes, it does. This is not a cheap project. I've already figured out what I want to use the black yarn for. Like I said, I'm going to turn the Union Street State of Mind into a sweater for Adam at some point. I don't know what I'm going to do with the light blue-green yarn. It's not really my thing. No shade to the yarn dyer. It just wasn't the color I was expecting. I think Gwen might like it. Next, how am I going to make this blanket? I don't know. I've looked at a couple different patterns. I've looked at a lot of Stephen West, actually. And I've also considered doing some intarsia as far as making it sort of mid-century modern, something sort of Mondrian inspired, or I almost said Andrew Lloyd Webber. Would Adam like a Phantom of the Opera inspired blanket for his 6th anniversary? Probably not. Maybe Starlight Express. I don't know how Adam feels about roller skates. Sorry, if you don't give a shit about musical theater, this is probably incredibly boring, but if you do, I promise the jokes I'm making are so funny right now. They really are. I think what I've landed on actually is a riff on Stephen West's Wedgwood scarf. I could make that work for this because I like the idea of having frames around big swaths of this beautiful yarn. So the next thing I've really got to do is figure out what order I want to put these yarns in. And I'm thinking it's going to go Nightshade, Chantilly, Fairy, Union Street. Now, if I can get these all on screen at the same time. Okay. How are we liking this order? I spent a lot of time winding cakes of yarn over the weekend, and I'm going to get started this week. I don't know. Let's see if I actually finish this in time to give it to Adam for our anniversary on November 20th. It's been less than a week since my last update. I finally got started on the blanket. I'm doing thin bars of narrow horizontal stockinette framed by garter, which I think so far is looking good. I can show you. I've gotten through what I would call the first narrow bar. One thing that's actually exciting to me about this is that I didn't realize when I bought this yarn that it actually was slightly like tonally variegated. And I was worried that it was going to look a little boring in the frames if it was just one flat color. It's interesting because normally I would be sort of irritated if I thought I bought yarn that was supposed to be all one color and it turned out there were slight tonal variegations in it. But I think it's actually going to make the project look much better. And I'm really excited by the way that it turned out. I didn't choose a number of stitches to cast on. And in fact, I have no idea how many stitches I did cast on. This is, I think, a 60-inch fixed 5mm needle. And I just cast on until the needle was slightly crowded. And that seemed good. And I'm going to be knitting until I stop. So that's my plan. I'm going to knit until I run out of yarn or until it seems long enough, or until I get bored. My first thoughts on intarsia, that I overcomplicated it at the beginning. I thought it was going to be way more difficult than it was, and I'm going to be paying the price for that later, but that's okay. I can show you actually. Everybody's like, oh, when you do intarsia, all you're doing is crossing one piece of yarn over the other, and then you just... So I really messed that up initially. I was so confused with my very first intarsia stitch that I think I actually just put both colors of yarn on the same stitch, and it's still, yeah, you can see it still kind of left a hole right there. Fortunately, like I said, that's right where I joined the yarn, so that'll be easy for me to fix when I'm weaving in my ends. I think my big problem with a lot of knitting tutorials is that they tell you exactly what to do, but not why to do it. The second that I realized that what you're actually doing is sort of capturing the piece of yarn you're not using around the back in order to just sort of help it travel up and cover up the hole, then it totally it was so much easier for me to remember which strand of yarn went on top. It was easier for me to really like wrap my head around what I was doing. I don't understand a lot of the whys behind what it is I do when I knit, I'll be perfectly honest with you, but the more that I understand them, the more that knitting makes sense to me. And so I think that should be something people include in more tutorials. That's just my 2 cents, but also make sure that you're actually explaining the mechanics of it, because I have read some tutorials that are like, okay, so like the loop does this and then you do that. And I'm like, okay, but what are my hands do? Like, what do my hands do? So I think it's probably really difficult to split that difference. And I'm glad that I don't write knitting tutorials, because I barely know how to knit as it is. So far, I'm enjoying the project. It's going to take me so much longer than I thought. I'm averaging about 3 inches of blanket every 4 days because it's such a wide blanket. So I forecasted where I am with today. I think it's June 2nd. I forecasted where I am and where my anniversary is, and then I'm like, oh God, yeah, don't know if I'm gonna make it. Already explained that to Adam. Adam is being, of course, as sweet as pie about it. Who knows? Maybe this will turn out to be an anniversary scarf, a very wide, very heavy anniversary scarf, but a scarf nonetheless. And people are right about the fiddliness of dealing with all of the different balls of yarn. I'm not bothering with weighing yarn and making bobbins of it, because all of this is by vibes. I don't even, like I said, I don't even know how many stitches are on my needle. I don't particularly care. And since I'm only dealing with 2 colors a row, I don't see the need to have to portion out my yarn that way, because I'll just use the same skein the next time I come back to this color. So that's making it easier in some senses, but then in other senses, I'm dealing with 3 full-sized balls of yarn right now. I am looking forward to cutting this Bittersweet Nightshade, the Montana color, and then next moving on to the Detroit color. So that will be good. Yeah, I guess back to knitting for me. Happy Thursday. It is June 12th. I've been working on this blanket for what feels like forever, even though I'm not actually that far in. I did manage to get to a point where I've done all 4 color bars, so I wanted to show that off to you. You'll notice it's a new angle. That's because I'm sitting at my desk right now. I do the vast majority of my knitting on this blanket at this desk during meetings. I work from home. Everybody I work with is weirdly cool with me knitting, and they're always excited to see what I'm working on. So actually, it's kind of a dream for me. And it gives me something to do with my hands that helps me concentrate. I made a video about this a while back that's about me being autistic and knitting as a stim, which is basically like a thing that somebody who is autistic or ADHD or neurodivergent does to help them keep their nervous system calm and relaxed and regulated, so that they're more able to concentrate on things, or just generally feeling happier and less anxious. So that's a large part of why I knit. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This is the blanket. So let me show you what I've got so far. Okay. I'm actually really liking these colors. I was nervous about the purple. I think I should have gone with my first instinct and just gone with this, because I think it ended up looking really lovely. And I'm so glad that I swapped out this sky blue periwinkle color for the Copenhagen, because I think it goes really lovely with the other colors. It turns out I like Intarsia. Intarsia is way easier than I thought it would be. The only thing that's driving me slightly nuts about this project is the size. You'll see that I held up a little bit. I can't even fully straighten it out on my needles. But just to give you an idea, let me scoot back, of the size of this blanket. Ooh, the colors look really great from far away. I haven't seen that before. Sorry, I'm looking at the monitor and not at you. So sorry, my friends. Anyway, as much as I was complaining about how big this is, I think something that's really helped sort of pull me through it is the Intarsia. I've never done color work beyond like really big color blocks before, and I think having that next block is always really motivating for me. If you're liking the way this blanket looks, I'm happy to give you a very quick tutorial on how to make this. I'm never going to write a pattern for it, but it's fairly straightforward. So depending on the size of the blanket you want, choose row counts that make sense for you. So down here, this is 12 rows of garter stitch. And then I do an Intarsia block of 8 rows of stockinette, followed by 4 rows of garter. So that's very simple. And I'm just going to do that all the way up until I hit the top and then go back to another 12 rows of garter stitch. On the sides, I'm doing 6 stitches in the black before doing the intarsia on the back. You're probably wondering what the back looks like. I'm pretty pleased with the back for my first intarsia project, although obviously I'm not pleased about all of these freaking ends I'm going to have to weave in. But I think, you know, it's a little loose in places, but this stitch wise, but overall, you know, you're not going to be staring at the back of the blanket super close like this. Overall, from like the distance that people will be looking at it, I think it's pretty good. See, I think the whole intarsia thing is going pretty well, actually. I think the back is kind of cute, honestly. So a thing I'm doing that's a little weird, because it's technically the same color yarn, is I'm keeping the intarsia going all the way up this side. So I'm actually crossing over and changing from black skein 1 to black skein 2 right here every time I do this. And I'm doing that so that I can just keep continuing that skein of yarn all the way up the side, so I don't have a bunch of black ends to weave in by just going all the way across every 8 rows. So that's the progress I've made so far. I think I'm at about 7.5, 8 inches out of my goal of 90. So, you know, go me. I think that I'm making pretty decent progress. Like I said, this is June 12th. I need this done by November 20th. It is giving me time in the evenings to work on other projects as well. What I've been doing during the day when I'm at work, I only work on this blanket. And then in the evenings, I work on whatever project I want. Sometimes it's this blanket. Usually it's like a sweater or something that I'm making for myself. And then on the weekends, one full day is devoted to the blanket. And then the other day, my knitting time is devoted to another project. And it's deliberately devoted to another project. I will not work on this 2 weekend days in a row because I don't want to burn out on it. It's been really interesting. I didn't think I would like intarsia as much as I do. And I think this is a really good project for me as somebody who's never done intarsia before, because it's really the easiest possible way to do intarsia, in that it's very repetitive. It's very much like 6 stitches, cross over, get to the last 6 stitches, cross over, and then doing 4 rows of garter in between these blocks. So it isn't like trying to do a curve or any crazy shapes. It's just large, long, thin rectangles. And I'm getting more and more confident with my intarsia skills every day that I work on this. It's got me excited. I've got some intarsia projects in my favorites on Ravelry that were someday projects for me. And this has really, really boosted my confidence with that. I'm really, really excited to think about what I'm capable of doing next intarsia-wise. And that's really, really got me thinking about what I could do once I finish this blanket. I am definitely going to finish this blanket though before I get started on any other intarsia projects, because I don't want to tackle something that is more ambitious than this, get my ass handed to me, and then be like, ugh, no, I'm burnt out on intarsia, and then not be able to go back and finish this blanket. My next update, I may be like fully in tears and just be like, I can't believe I said that. This project's a disaster. I hate it. But I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud of myself for the amount of progress I'm making, how quickly I'm making it. I'm learning a new skill on it. Really, the only thing I fucked up is that there are a couple places in the garter stitch that magically turn into stockinette, which I've had happen to me before in the round, but never knitting flat. So that's just me being an idiot, I guess. But as I've mentioned in other videos, my beloved husband likes when I give him things that I've knit that are sort of imperfect, because then he really feels like they're handmade. So you saw how freaking giant this project is. You know, if I've noticed 6 or 7 or 8 or got this many rows back that, oops, there's a little bit of stockinette right here, I'm not ripping all that back, and you can't make me. Like I average, I think, almost a full one of these color blocks a work day. I would say probably like this much if you, and then this part and the next. So like, you know, six or 7 rows a day. And so I'm not ripping back 2-3 days work in order to get rid of a little bit of stockinette right there. I really thought I was a perfectionist until I took up knitting. I have to become more emotionally resilient about frogging. I know I do. This is not the project that's going to do that for me. How the hell do I block something this big in England? Like, I can't put it outside. I can't put it outside flat to dry because it'll get God knows what on it. I can't put it inside to dry because this house is damp. Like, England is the country that invented the concept of damp, I feel like. So it's not going to dry right. Maybe I steam block it. I don't know. But particularly because it's bunched up on the cord, I'm going to need to block it just to get it flat. God, and even if I steam block it, I guess I could just lay it out on the floor. Yeah. But you know what? That is far future me's problem. We'll figure that out when we get there. Okay, Elizabeth out.
That was true, that was true.
See, you live among us as a mild-mannered farm boy. Secretly, you're a strange visitor from another planet, plotting our demise.
It's not what I'm doing at all.
It's a brilliant disguise, Clark. You don't even need a mask.
I've never done anything to hurt you.
You didn't trust me. With everything you had, with everything you could do, did you ever think about what we could have accomplished together? I would have helped you become a hero.
Thought of anyone but yourself.
Right now, I'm doing this for the world. I have to protect the human race.
This is my life. You have no right to control it.
It's my birthright! After all my sacrifices, after all the pain, I finally understand. I was being prepared for a much greater destiny. Everything led me to this moment.
We're both here. We're in that moment. And what happens next is your choice. But no one is controlling you, Lex. No one is forcing you to do this.
Who am I to turn my back on my fellow man? Especially after you turned your back on me. Sorry, Clark. But you are the traveler. You hold the future of the entire planet in your hands. I'm here to take it back.
Lex.
You'll never threaten the world again. Kal-El.
Lex, don't!
It is Thursday, November 6th. If my background looks like way more of a freaking mess than usual, there's a reason for that. I'm in the middle of moving house. In the middle of moving house, we're supposed to pick up the keys to the new place that we'll be living a week from tomorrow. And I'm supposed to have this blanket done 2 weeks from today. I want it done before we move, so I'm not trying to move an in-progress giant-ass blanket. That seems reasonable. And I think I figured out how to do it, actually. And I ran my idea past Adam, and he's into it. So officially, this is no longer a blanket with horizontal stripes. No, my friend, you've seen this blanket lots of times. You've seen these stripes. You thought they were horizontal. You were wrong. This is now a blanket with vertical stripes. Why? Because when I started this blanket, I made it so freaking wide that it turns out that if I don't try to make this bedspread size, if I try to make this more of a single blanket, it's actually going to be the perfect size once I finish this final light blue Copenhagen block. Then I can just do the same thick charcoal that I did on the end, which is now the side, and just be done with the blanket. So that's my plan. That's my plan. And I'm sticking to it. And that means that hopefully I will have this blanket done by the end of the week. I'm also so grateful that I've been weaving in my ends as I go on this, because with the Intarsia, there have been a lot of ends. So I'm going to do a little bit of a knit and chat while we sit here today. And I tell you, right now, I'll tell you this for free. I don't think you should knit blankets for people you love. Or at least if you do, you should not try to knit a queen-size bedspread out of worsted weight yarn for somebody you love. You've heard of the sweater curse? With the right pattern and the right gauge of yarn, I'd knit a sweater right now for somebody I didn't particularly like that much. Knitting a worsted weight 5 foot by 7.5 foot blanket for somebody you love is not an act of love. That's an act of mental illness. I don't know what I was thinking when I decided that that was the size of the blanket that I wanted to make. I had only ever really made a lapgan before, and it went fast enough that I think I was just like, oh yeah, that'll be fine. I love my husband. I love my husband more than pretty much anything. I am so freaking sick of working on this blanket. I never thought before I started this project that I would ever get burnt out working on a single thing for somebody else. And yet here I am. Just I still love my husband very much. I don't love this blanket, you guys. And I'm so close. I'm knitting row 7 of 8 of this final block of color. And then I've got, I think it's 12 rows of the charcoal ending. And I'm doing good. One thing that I did on this, because it's such a wide blanket and because these are such wide blocks of intarsia, is I didn't actually put any bobbins together. I just worked from balls of yarn. And in the last sort of charcoal area, I ran out of one ball of yarn. And I figured I was so close that I did something, again, that I would never recommend you do. Have you ever worked intarsia from both sides of one ball of yarn? Have you? Now I can say for some ungodly reason I have, and I wouldn't. Why did I do that? I was just like, oh, I want to make sure that I use up this ball of yarn, I guess. Okay, I guess. I mean, I probably would have anyway. This was just, and the thing is, I have caked up balls of this yarn. I could have just started a new one. I could have, but I didn't. And that's on me, I guess. I guess that's on me. What I want to talk to you about that will help me through the home stretch on this blanket is how much I love my husband. And I'm sorry if that's weird or gross or trad wifey of me. It feels really uncool to say that you truly love and respect somebody that you're married to if you have like heterosexual presenting relationship with that person. All of the humor when I was growing up is about how much men hate their wives. And then there was this whole, post early 2000s, like misogyny was so blatantly acceptable that there was a real misandrist backlash where it was just cool to hate men, which I could never particularly get into for a really funny reason, which is that I have too many friends who are trans men. Anyway, all of this to say, I really love the person that I'm married to. And our relationship is built, I think, on a deep foundation of mutual admiration and respect, this is the first time in my life I think I've ever been in a relationship where that was true. And I'm just deeply grateful for it. And we haven't been together forever. We've been together about a decade. This is our 7th, I think, wedding anniversary. Yeah, this is our 7th wedding anniversary coming up. And it's interesting because I have friends in their very early 30s who got married in their mid to late 20s who are just like, oh my God, if you ever fight with your husband, just divorce him. Like, it should never feel hard. It just feels easy. And if your relationship doesn't feel easy, you're in the wrong relationship. And then I have like friends who are a decade or more older than me that I, know from when I grew up in a church who got married basically as teenagers. And they've been happily married to their spouse, but they talk about how much work it is and how you have to constantly work and how marriage is like a great sports car and you need to get it constantly tuned up. And, you have to make sure that you're in counseling with your husband. You've got to do all of the stuff together in order to make sure, because if you care about it, you need to really maintain it. And it's hard. It's hard work, but it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. Both of those models of relationships sound super sus to me. And I think it's just because I've never been in a relationship relationship that was that as hard work as I've heard described like that was worth it. Like, I've never been in a relationship where the juice was worth that much of a squeeze. And I've never been in a relationship with somebody where I didn't fight, where we were being our true authentic selves. And so I think if you want advice from somebody who's been together a decent amount of time, but not forever, who's been married before this, I don't know. What I would say in my relationship with my beloved spouse, we put in the hard work that made it easy now. Like, the first couple years of our relationship were not a piece of cake. I had friends wondering why we were still together, frankly. And I just said it was like an investment, that I didn't know what kind of people we were going to turn out to be together, but I was really interested in finding out. And, you know, we put in the hard work. We went to therapy separately. I got my autism diagnosis, which I think really helped our relationship, because in Adam's words, I stopped pretending that I wasn't weird and like trying to hide all of the weird shit that I thought and did in an attempt to seem normal. And I think that took a lot of strain off of our relationship. Sorry, all of my yarn just got both ends of the charcoal yarn are now looped around the light blue yarn, and I've got to figure out how to untangle that. In Tarja, everybody. So like we put in a lot of hard work, and now I would say we're at a place where we have a fight maybe once a year. And even then it's not, I mean, the fights feel horrible because I just love my husband so much, and I don't like feeling mad at him or feeling like he's mad at me. But like the last fight we had was like, I think it was this summer, and we had a big fight, and I was like, what the hell? Like, this feels like, if anything, I was like, is everything okay? Because Adam is not acting like himself. And it was the middle of summer. It was a heat wave. He took a shower and ate something and came back and was like, I'm so sorry, I'm feeling way better now. I was like, cool, I love you. And he was like, cool, I love you too. You know, I also see a lot of couples talk about, you know, the key is to just not care. There was a headline I saw where George Clooney said that he and his wife have never had a fight because he's at an age where if Amal wants to paint a room red, he doesn't care. And that's so sad. Like, you can have opinions, you can care, just know how to have a discussion about it instead of a fight. And I think I've always felt, and this is something that we talked about very early on in a relationship, I've always felt that conflict is such a healthy thing, because all that a conflict is a realigning of expectations. And so if you and your partner have the same goal and you're constantly realigning your expectations of each other to make sure that you're focused on the goals together, you're fucking unstoppable. Like, at least that's how it is to me. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to have somebody whose company I enjoy. Like, there's nobody else I would rather, genuinely, there's nobody else on this planet I would rather spend time with. Like, every time somebody's asked me if you could have dinner with 5 people, living or dead, who would they be? The first person I think of is always Adam. Like, I wouldn't, like, no matter who the other 4 people are, I wouldn't have as much fun if Adam wasn't there. And so I'm so grateful that I have somebody whose company I enjoy that much, who's so aligned with the goals that I have for my life and myself and for my family, and who shares those goals with me, somebody who works so hard about them, and somebody who just genuinely, deeply gives a shit about me, who works hard to make sure that the goals, the parts of our future plan that we have together that are the parts that are most important to me, that are maybe less important to Adam, are still deeply important to him because they're important to me. And he's willing to work harder to make sure that we get those. And I've never in my whole life had that before. And it's just such a wonderful thing. I've read a lot of like interviews with divorce lawyers and like relationship experts and, you know, couples counselors and whatever. And they always say that the number one sign that a couple isn't going to make it, or that they should break up, is when they sort of start having contempt for each other, or they get resentful of each other. It's sort of that lack of mutual respect and admiration. And I read that a lot because, you know, I've been in a lot of failed relationships. Well, not a lot. You know, I've married almost everybody that I've dated seriously as an adult. I'll be perfectly honest. Not that many people, but it's true. All of the relationships I've had have ended in that kind of contempt and resentment. You know, most of the reasons people leave or relationships end are infidelity or conflict about finances or hiding finances or that kind of thing. And all of that, like, those are the symptoms of the resentment and lack of respect that people have for each other. And in contrast, Adam had a really tough day earlier this week. And I knew it because, like, we both work from home, so it's great because we'll run into each other in the kitchen getting like beverages or whatever and chat a little bit about our day. Sometimes we'll see each other at lunch and we'll talk. And so I knew Adam had had a really tough day, and it was my day to make dinner. We split the days to make dinner. Adam makes dinner 4 days a week. I make dinner 3 days a week. And he's a way better cook than me. And so it was my day to make dinner. And so I made dinner and I told him dinner was ready. And he was like in the middle of something. And he knows I get a little hurt if he doesn't go get dinner right away, but he was in the middle of something. So I didn't say anything because I knew he had a rough day. Like, he got to a place, it wasn't really a place where he would normally stop, but he did just enough that he could sort of stop. And then he got dinner, and then he came and he sat down in the recliner next to me when we were having dinner. And I saw him just take a moment, sort of take a deep breath, look at his plate. And then he was like, "Thank you so much for making dinner, babe." And I was just so deeply moved by just watching him without anything I said, literally the only thing I said to him was, "Hey, dinner's ready." And watching him take the moment to be like, okay, what am I grateful for right now? Oh, it's my wife. Like, I'm going to tear up about it a little bit. Like, it's those little moments. It's not anything we've ever consciously talked about. It's not like we have like couples counselor saying, make sure you find 3 things you're grateful for each other every day. But like, we find those moments every day, multiple times a day, to be like, hey, thank you. Or, hey, I noticed you did this and I'm really appreciative that you did this. I can't imagine living my life any other way. I'm just so unbelievably lucky and fortunate and grateful for having Adam in my life and for getting to live my life with him. And honestly, my only regret is that I was so much older when I met him, because I would spend another 100 years with him. Like, it's just magical. And I'm saying all of this because I'm so freaking tired of making this blanket that I'm just reminding myself why I'm making the blanket, why I spent so much of my year doing this for my husband. And it's because my husband spent so much of his year doing things so much more annoying for me than just making me a blanket. And if he wants a blanket, he's getting his freaking blanket. So yeah, I just wanted to sit down. Like I said, I'm so close. Oh my gosh, I'm finishing row 7 of 8. So then I have one more row of this blue, and then I've got 12 rows of this charcoal, and then we're done, baby. Then it's just a couple ends to weave in, and we're there. So probably the next time I speak to you, this blanket is gonna be donezo. It's done. It's finished. I finished it. Today is Saturday, November 8th. I'm holding the blanket that I made for my husband for our anniversary in my hands. It is bound off. It is done. I finished it late last night, and I've only ever seen it bunched up on the cord. I haven't actually unfurled it in all of its beauty. So I'm going to do that now. Oh, this is long. It's thin, but it's long. I think that's fine. It's this and this and this and also this. This is the blanket. Wow, it's really beautiful. I did it. I'm sorry. This is probably really boring, but I'm just sort of sitting here. I've been working on this for so long. I think I ordered the yarn for this in February, and then it was wrong, and I had to reorder some of it, and I had to stress about it. And then I got started knitting it in March, and now it's the beginning of November and it's done. Did I think I would ever finish this? Honestly, no. There was definitely a deep part of myself that thought that I would just never finish this, and this would just be a project that lingered forever. But I did finish it. And it's like, you can see a year almost. Well, you can see 6 months of my knitting. Like, you can see my tension getting more even. You can see where I stopped purling through the back loop. See places where I messed up for sure. But this was a 6 months of my life that I dedicated to making a blanket to keep my husband warm, made out of yarn from all of the places that we've lived together. I am astonished that this was something I was able to do. And I'll be honest, I don't think this is cope. I think I like the motif more as vertical stripes than horizontal stripes. Anyway, for one particular reason. I think it looks so much nicer in the Seattle stripes, which are gray with just a touch of blue. See that? Because it looks to me almost like rain in the vertical stripe, which makes me think of Seattle more. I can't believe I did it. This is done. I think Adam's gonna love it. One of the reasons I was comfortable making this vertical and thinner is because Adam said he was mostly gonna use it on his recliner in the living room when it gets cold. And we're moving to a larger house just outside of London that I'm really excited about. But one of the things that I appreciate about it, it's going to be a lot more room for the family. It's going to be good. I'm going to have a slightly larger office, which is exciting. I'm thinking about getting a loom or maybe a spinning wheel. I haven't decided which yet. I'm leaning, I think, towards loom. The only thing I didn't really like about it was that there is this big blue feature wall in the living room. And all of our furniture in the living room is brown. And I was like, I don't know how these things are going to go. And I don't really have anything to incorporate blue. I've been incorporating blue this whole time and I didn't even know it. Feeling good, you guys. Feeling good. What did I learn? Never make a worsted weight blanket for someone as a present when there is a due date for that present. Never do it. Just never do it. I also learned Intarsia. I am not afraid of Intarsia anymore. Now, I didn't do the most advanced version of Intarsia, and just as a reminder for people who are like, bitch, that's just stripes. No, I did Intarsia. See, you can see the corner of the blanket there. All of that's Intarsia. Show you the back of the blanket. So I think I don't really have any gapping where the Intarsia meets, which I know is a problem a lot of people have, and I'm very fortunate for that. So I think I did the technique of sort of how you marry the colors of yarn in Intarsia. I'm feeling very confident about now. The thing that I didn't really do is the bobbins. I could get maybe 2 of these bricks out of a single skein of yarn because it's blanket sized. So I didn't really see the point in trying to measure out yarn and put it on bobbins and that kind of thing. I just worked from balls of yarn the entire time. So I just had 3 balls of yarn. I was not always great at yarn management, but I did okay. And so I think the next thing in leveling up my Intarsia would be getting used to the bobbins and having to weigh and measure my yarn. Does everybody do that for Intarsia? Because that seems like a lot. Because even if you're using different colors of different yarns might have slightly different weights. So do you have to swatch with every single color? Oh man, I don't like math. I really don't like math. I'm not planning any Intarsia projects immediately, so I'm fine. So I learned Intarsia. I also learned patience. And I mean this in both the bad and the good way. I think I learned what I was capable of. I'll throw onto the screen some of the other patterns I had been considering for this blanket because I was really thinking I wanted something that was going to push me to the limits of what I was capable of as a knitter. And so I was looking at some complicated lace, I was looking at cables, I kept getting input from Adam. And I was like, Intarsia is really interesting. I haven't really done color work, but this does feel significantly more simple. But the thing that really sort of put me over the top with doing it this way is it's sort of my own design. Like I said, it's vaguely inspired by Stephen West's Wedgwood shawl, although he uses short rows to make them start very narrow and then wedge out, as you might expect. But I really liked these narrow vertical blocks of stockinette framed fully by garter ridges. I thought that was really beautiful, and so I figured out how to do that as sort of a blanket. I wouldn't even really call this like a pattern. I don't know how, I never counted how many stitches. Like the entire time I worked on this, I never counted how many stitches. But I think if I had tried any of the more complicated patterns that I had been considering, any of the really ambitious stuff, I don't think I would have finished in time. I think this was at the max of what I could do. Not technically, but I think I discovered the limits of my patience because I had to take most of the summer off, partially because of the ridiculous heat waves that we had in London, but also partially, particularly towards the end, I got really resentful of this project. And I think that this is something that we don't talk about enough as knitters. Like, a project can be going very well. You can know how you're doing. Like, at the beginning, it was really flying because I was mastering the technique of intarsia, and because switching between garter and stockinette was interesting enough for me. But as the year went on, as I tried tackling harder things like brioche and lace and like all of this other stuff, this just got really freaking boring because it was so wide. And this is another thing I think you should think about if you decide on making blankets. Because I work from home and I knit in meetings, I have, depending on how many meetings I have and depending on, frankly, my knitting fortitude for the day, I have anywhere between 4 to 8 hours of knitting time at work before I go downstairs and I knit on something else in the living room. So since March, with a couple months off in the summer, I've been knitting on this at least 20 hours a week. And in one day, if I was lucky, I could get most of one of these bars. I could do a full color repeat in, I don't know, like a week and a half. If I was really focused, if I was really on it. I wasn't seeing enough progress to really stay engaged with this project as much as I wanted to, particularly towards the end, even in the process of binding off, which really screwed up my hand. Like, the more stitches I bound off, the more I was like, have you ever ordered something from a restaurant and you feel like you ate like half of it, or you must be mostly done, and then you look down at the plate and it's all still there? That's how it felt binding this off. I was like, I swear, I've been binding this. It took me an episode and a half of Homestead Rescue, which is a great television show, by the way. Adam and I love watching it because the Rainies are these homesteaders from Alaska who go rescue people whose homesteads are falling apart, usually because they've really screwed up. They've been doing a lot of more stuff about like natural disasters, people who are competent homesteaders, but through no fault of their own, have not been able to keep their homestead up due to hurricanes or volcanoes or whatever else. Yes, volcanoes. But the first couple seasons I really loved because it was definitely people who got a little too influenced by like the Tradwife homesteady TikTok and had no idea what they were doing. So these seasoned homesteaders would go in and be like, what the hell is wrong with you? And as a Montanan, it's just a real joy to watch because Adam loves watching me watch it because I've lived in London, one of the biggest, coolest, greatest like metro cities in the world for, I don't know, since 2018. Before that, I was in Copenhagen. Like, I have very much acclimated, and taking a look at me, you would think I was very much a city mouse. But then I start shouting about, what do you mean you don't have a first flush filter on your gutters when you're collecting drinking water? Do you not know, like, have you seen the bird population in your area? What do you mean you don't know what a thermal battery is? We covered that in school. And Adam's like, you covered what? What? I'm like, did you not learn how to make a thermal battery in science class? And he's like, no, because I went to school in Detroit. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it's just so funny because I don't even like camping. Like, I don't want to be outside. I want to have a comfy mattress and I don't want any bugs to touch me. But that doesn't mean that if the apocalypse happened, that I don't know ball. Like, I could absolutely competently run a homestead so that we could all survive, growing food, hunting, foraging, doing basic repair, building shelter, whatever. It's just, and this is really crucial, I don't wanna. I wanna get my groceries delivered. I buy my meat from a sustainable, ecological farm that makes sure that does open grazing and makes sure that their farm stock is part of the overall ecosystem and actually is carbon neutral. People who are doing it right. I know enough to know how to give my money to the people who are doing it right. I don't ever want to have to do it myself. We have advanced as a society because homesteading sucks. Like, the whole reason we invented grocery stores and moved into cities and agrarian stuff is because it turns out that that shit is really hard. And if you don't love it, you shouldn't have to do it. And yeah, sorry, that has nothing to do with this blanket. It took It took an episode and a half of Marty Rainey rescuing wayward homesteaders for me to even bind off, because it's so wide. It's so wide. I'm feeling really proud of what I did. And I'm also feeling almost lightheaded with possibility. Again, this is like at least 20 hours of knitting a week I'm going to get back. I only have 2.5 more gift knits to do for Christmas. I have 2 hats and a pair of fingerless mitts. I'm free. I might even actually get to knit some stuff for myself before I head to the Arctic in December. This is wild. This is unprecedented. This is an accomplishment. This is like 3 sweaters. This is like a ridiculous shawl, actually. Like, I kind of feel like I almost feel like this is like a fashion statement. Like, this is kind of lovely. This is making me want to make the Stephen West Wedgwood shawl, actually. I did it. This dark blue is from Great Falls, Montana. This bright blue is from just outside of Detroit. This gray blue is from Seattle, Washington. And this icy sky blue is from just outside of Copenhagen. And this charcoal gray, this very dark charcoal gray, is all from London. This is the story of how I fell in love with my husband in yarn. And it's also almost the story of how I fell out of love with knitting and then I fell back in love. Is it really a rom-com if there isn't a dip in the middle? I'm just so grateful. I'm so excited that I was able to do this, and I'm so happy that I was able to share this with you. This is the longest, most ambitious video I've ever made. If you'd like to see me sort of keep some projects aside to do videos like this fully beginning to end, let me know. I'm very open to this format. I don't ever want to knit something that takes me this long again. But if you're interested in just sort of this format in general, do let me know, and I am happy to do it. If you enjoyed this video, please do stick around. I think we have a really great community in the comments. If you want to see me ramble even more casually than I do here, please think about joining the Patreon. I update a little bit more casually there. I want to make sure that we're doing monthly hangouts. I think we've got a really cool group of people. It's a nice space, and I encourage you to join if you feel like it. And I hope you're having a great day. My day just started, but I'm feeling this is a really great way to start. So I hope you're having a great day, and I hope tomorrow is even better than today was. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.